Welcome to the She Said Privacy, He Said Security podcast. Like any good marriage, we will debate, evaluate, and sometimes quarrel about how privacy and security impact business in the 21st century.
Hi, Jody Daniels here. I'm the founder and CEO of Red Clover Advisors, a certified women's privacy consultancy. I'm a privacy consultant and a certified informational privacy professional, providing practical privacy advice to overwhelmed companies.
Hi, Justin Daniels here. I am a technology attorney who is passionate about helping companies solve complex cyber and privacy challenges during the life cycle of their business. I am the cyber quarterback, helping clients design and implement cyber plans, as well as help them manage and recover from data breaches.
And this episode is brought to you by, I like that one this time, Red Clover Advisors. We help companies to comply with data privacy laws and establish customer trust so that they can grow and nurture integrity. We work with companies in a variety of fields, including technology, SaaS, e-commerce, media agencies, and professional and financial services. In short, we use data privacy to transform the way companies do business. Together, we're creating a future where there's greater trust between companies and consumers. To learn more, visit redcloveradvisors.com.
And today, what? Is this going to mark the end of our kitchen renovation?
Almost a really big, important one. We're going to get a counter. This is very exciting. But then there's like a decorative element that comes. We need a new light.
I'll let you handle that. But I'm just curious. We have a contractor coming today, and how will you know when you answer the door that that person is the contractor?
They have a really big counter with them.
So they'll have something that they're using to indicate to you that this person must be the contractor and isn't impersonating the contractor.
I think you're giving a hint for what we're going to be talking about today.
Exactly. We're going to be talking a little bit about identity access management for the cloud.
Well, since you're so excited, I think you should introduce our special guest.
Art Poghosyan is a serial entrepreneur with 20 plus years of cybersecurity experience. His entrepreneurial journey started with Advancive, a leading identity management consulting and solutions implementation company, where he led the company's exponential growth and eventual acquisition by Optiv Security in 2016. Now, as founder of Britive, they are solving cloud's most challenging security problem, privileged access security. Prior to his foray into entrepreneurship, Art's security career began as a consultant with a Big Four firm where he spent 8 years working with global enterprises across various industries. Welcome, Art.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, we're so excited to talk to you today. And we always like to get started to understand how people got to where they are today. So you have founded a new company. We learned a little bit about how you started at a Big Four firm, but help us fill in the gaps.
Sounds good. Yeah, so I've spent about 20 years in InfoSec, and first half of that was with Big Four firms, and Ernst Young was the main one. And I was a consultant, information security consultant, working with the major enterprise accounts across industry verticals. Second half was the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. And as you mentioned, Advancive was the first company, the first business that I founded. So a little story there. When I was starting my first business in 2009, we're right in the middle of one, sure you remember, but one of the largest economic financial crises that this country has ever seen. So it was kind of an interesting time to do that. Start a business. But I kind of took a contrarian bet that the security consulting services were primed for disruption, and specifically identity and access management. This was because at the time, the market was primarily dominated by the Big Four players for these services, which, the cost and the price tag was very high, very expensive, but customers were also increasingly getting dissatisfied with the outcomes. So that is the kind of problem that I decided to take on with a boutique approach to expert IAM consulting services, and that's what Advancive did. So the business did really well. We grew for about almost 6 years actually, before Optiv acquired us. And after that, I started the Britive journey, which is cloud privileged access and identity management solution.
Well, as an entrepreneur myself, I always relish hearing different entrepreneur journeys. And a lot of people will say that when there's a downturn is actually still a great time to build something. And you took advantage of that. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Especially with cybersecurity, where there is no downturn.
The bad people always find an opportunity.
They do. Well, one of the reasons we're excited to have Art here today is we're going to talk about the cloud, because Art, as I like to say, you know what, my data is on the cloud. So of course that means it's very secure. And so teeing up our question, which is, what is the biggest misconception around security in the cloud?
It's a great question. So from the enterprise business point of view, I think the biggest misconception is that you can actually secure the cloud with tools that were built for the data center. I think this is one that I see almost every day. And I think the one big reason because most businesses today, when they think about their cloud journey, they think about sort of this lift and shift approach. And it's very common these days. They take what they have in their data centers from the physical infrastructure and networks and move it to the cloud and put it in the VMware. And now they have cloud. Great. And they kind of tend to think about the security of that world like it is still the data center. Well, what happens over time is their needs evolve, and they start adopting and using more cloud technologies and cloud native technologies, which are much more sophisticated and advanced, like serverless technologies and microservices that big cloud providers like Amazon and Google and so on are offering. But the reality of these new cloud native technologies is that they are very different. Architecturally, they're very different. And so really, it's a whole different level of challenge to secure these environments. So that's kind of the common recurring theme that I see, that there's that misconception that you can secure a cloud with the tools that you already had in the data center.
Well, we often hear, and Justin, you just kind of joked about your data's in the cloud business, so it's safe. And truly, though, I'll talk to companies and they'll say, well, my data's in AWS or my data's in XYZ cloud space, and therefore I don't need to do anything. It's all secure. Why is it that businesses say or think, I put it in the cloud, it's secure?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on this topic, there was a completely different point of view, maybe like 15 years ago when cloud was new. And it was more like, oh, nothing in the cloud is secure. So it's almost like we've kind of taken a whole 180-degree shift from that perspective to, okay, so if it's in the cloud, it must be secure. I think there's a combination of a couple of different things here that to me, at least, it explains why there's that attitude. Definitely cloud has matured and evolved over the past about 15 years since public cloud technologies have become popular. I think a lot of it is because the cloud technologies and the cloud vendors have evolved their security. Well, it's one thing that is common is a lot of the cloud native service providers, SaaS, DaaS, PaaS, anything that you have, they always try to assure the customers that they have the right level of security, that they are protecting the data properly. And they're not necessarily lying about that, but the reality of how, especially large and very large cloud providers like the major SaaS platforms, for example, the reality of these businesses is that a lot of what's happening, especially in their technologies, how they're evolving, it's difficult to always maintain security at the right level across all. Especially they're innovating very fast. It's difficult to maintain security kind of equally across all the new features and functionality. We add to that too also the businesses, consumer-facing businesses, especially that they're building a lot of the new applications, new modern tools and technologies for consumers. Well, especially when it involves data, they're using what cloud has to offer, the cloud native capabilities like big data and analytics, technologies. So these functions, these business functions, in a way, they kind of run ahead of the security. They're trying to be agile. They're trying to be very customer centric and offer new features and functionality. Well, cloud it offers the technologies, but don't always the security features and controls don't always exist in those new features and functionality. So what I'm seeing more frequently today is security teams are really trying to play a catch up and trying to balance the business agility, the business needs with the security requirements and protecting the important data, critical data like consumer data.
So, kind of turning to your company now, Britive, how are you addressing disrupting identity access management security for the cloud?
So this one's definitely near and dear to my heart. I've spent a long time in the identity and access management solution space, and I believe that the identity and access management plays a much bigger role in the modern cloud native world than it has in the data center world. This is because cloud technologies cannot be protected with a firewall like the traditional networks were. So identity and access has effectively become the perimeter, the frontline security that the businesses have to protect. Unfortunately, though, many businesses are still thinking about securing cloud identities and access like it is the data center. Well, Britive introduces several innovative concepts and ideas for identity and access management in the cloud. One of them is this concept of zero standing access, or zero standing privileges. What this means is the users can be authorized and receive access on demand, just in time when they need it. But it always expires automatically when their session is over, when they're done with their activities. This ensures that there is no 24/7 exposure of access or privileges that attackers love to exploit. Another key concept is to ensure that we are constantly analyzing and monitoring the activities of users in the cloud technologies, identities, and the privileges and access that they are authorized to have. And our machine learning engine makes sure that we detect behavioral patterns that are different from normal pattern and quickly take on remediation actions. For example, alerting the security teams, as well as revoking access on the fly if that's what's needed to prevent a breach.
Are there any, some companies might say, I'm too small to need these types of tools. So thinking about some of the objections that I'm sure you get when you're talking to different companies, we've talked about some of them already with the need for security in the cloud. Can you share a little bit about what kinds of companies or the type of data that they're protecting need to have this type of a tool?
Mm-hmm. This one is an interesting one because there are two camps out there that, the security teams, we rarely hear any objections from them. The security teams always understand the big, benefits and value of a solution like Britive. The common objections come from the cloud development teams, the folks who are building the applications, folks who are building, data analytics, platforms and so on. And the approach they like to take is to say that they can build a solution like Britive. They can build it in-house. And there are two big problems with this approach. The first problem is, while the cloud developers are more than competent to build the solutions, building security solutions in-house is a whole different beast. And often the time and the resources and the cost that takes to build solutions like Britive in-house are vastly underestimated. And it's usually 1 or 2 years after they start looking at the situation and say, this is not sustainable. And they start looking for a solution like Britive. The second scenario is multi-cloud is a reality for enterprise. Even if they could build in-house for one of the major platforms, let's say AWS, as soon as they start expanding to other cloud providers like Azure and GCP, now the cost exponentially goes up, and it becomes a lot bigger of a undertaking to do in-house. And to the question, what size and what complexity of organization needs a solution like Britive? Our belief is that every organization needs a solution like Britive that has cloud's assets to protect. And if you're in business, you have at least employee data. If you're in business, you at least have some customer data, and so on, right? So, and your proprietary assets and crown jewels. All of these things need to be protected. So there really isn't a hard line what businesses do or do not need a solution like Britive.
I hear the build your own tool all the time, especially in the privacy space. I always say there are experts in the field. That's why you work with the experts. They've done it all for you.
Well, Art, when I think about your business in the cloud and the security challenges of today, I think of Kaseya. I think of the vendor ecosystem that provides services as part of the cloud offering. And so my thought is, with that in mind, how does your tool for people who use it help them better protect themselves when there's nothing you can do as a customer if your cloud vendor has its own vendor get hacked, and because they want access to all of the customers of that cloud vendor?
No, that is a very big problem. You're correct, Justin, because these days, even small businesses that are very open and have a lot of business partners, and they have third parties that they're doing business with. So essentially their security extends to all these third parties that have, in some way, control or access to their data, to their environment infrastructure. How Britive protects that? This is actually one of the biggest value adds to the customers. That, as I said before, right, the identity and access in organizations that have embraced cloud becomes very, very important for securing the environment. So that goes for any third parties that need to be granted access to their environment, to their data. And that's where Britive helps make that very efficient, at the same time, facilitate the business need while not making that security be any kind of a burden or barrier for doing business with these entities, right? So that becomes a very natural and agile method of granting access, and that access always expires, so there's no risk left to be attacked from the outside, really.
Well, thank you for that. So one thing that we love to ask all of our guests, particularly someone such as yourself with so much experience in the security field, is on a personal level for our audience, what is your best security tip that people could benefit from?
Yeah. So this may sound kind of very, very simple, but really to the broader audience, my best tip is to actually try to learn security. Security and privacy teams these days are the kind of modern day heroes, defending against all kinds of sophisticated attacks every day. And security really has to become everyone's business to protect our companies, to protect our businesses. And so fortunately, there's a lot of educational content and material out there about security these days, and every employee, every team member can take half an hour to 45 minutes a day to read up about something like ransomware or privileged credential attacks or phishing attacks. and just really understand how attackers succeed and what each and everyone can do to stop them from carrying these attacks.
And when you are not building a company trying to help fend off these types of attacks, what do you like to do in your free time?
Which is very, very little, but I still do get some free time. Yeah, and thank you for that question. I love outdoors, Jody. I try to do some hiking whenever I can. Fortunately, I live close to Angeles National Forest, a big wilderness area. I'm close to that, and there's a lot of hiking trails. So I spent some time there. But other than that, I like reading books, and ironically, these days most of them are about how to grow your business. So that's my other hobby.
So, do you have a favorite book that you've read maybe in the last little while that you want to recommend?
Sure. The one that I just finished was the title was The Qualified Sales Leader by John McMahon, and that was a really good book, I thought, and very timely for where my business is and what challenges we need to tackle.
Excellent. Well, if someone would like to learn more about Britive and connect with you, where should they go?
I'm fairly accessible. LinkedIn, I respond to messages. Artyom Poghosyan. If you search for Britive, just look for the co-founder and CEO. That's easier. But otherwise, email is art@britive.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this information with our audience. We really appreciate it. Just anything you want to add?
No, it's been great. Everyone thinks everything's secure on the cloud, and Art's here to say that not so much.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Art,
for joining
us.
Just to add, but we're getting there with Britive and others that are really helping secure the cloud. We'll get there.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
Thanks for listening to the She Said Privacy, He Said Security podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes and check us out on LinkedIn. See you next time.